Music makes the world go round and the fight last longer, since it's apparently a great method of battle. Playing your instrument, using your melodic vocal cords, or showing off your moves suitable for the dance floor are viable in fighting games. Of course, bubbles are too, so I can't be that surprised. This topic was suggested by viewer Hui Hui, and speaking randomly in parts of this video is co-host person we call Judgment Meter. She's here because she likes musical things.
Yes, singing is my 8th favorite thing to do.
What's your first favorite?
Knitting. I actually don't know how to knit.
The only rules are one character per series of origin, which really only majorly affects 2 franchises, and the character has to be musically themed either in battle or with their in-game story, whether they triumph with the trumpet, succeed with singing, dominate with dancing, or fight in any other way involving music. So let's tune into the top 10 musical fighting game characters. Number 10, DJ from Street Fighter. There are mainly 2 music-themed characters in Street Fighter, Elena and DJ. I'm going to give the slight edge to DJ though, since he has the backstory of being a professional musician. While his attacks are based on kickboxing, he has a rhythm to his moves, like the beat is never turned off in his head, and he has pretty cool headphones in some costumes. He's not so over the top that he would throw his newest album as a projectile, but the music is still deep in his veins. His super move climax beat is one of my favorites in the series. Here, he quadruples his BPM and wails on his opponent, tossing maracas in the air before the attack in Street Fighter 4 and catching them after the pummeling. In his arcade mode ending in Street Fighter Alpha 3, he defeats Bison and then gets signed to a record deal, the latter of which I like to think is canon since he's already famous in Street Fighter 2, solely entering these tournaments to get that new rhythm for his next album. I guess that makes sense for him. DJ seems to be okay with about anything. He's never not smiling, even in the heat of battle. Well, most of the time.
Oh my god, what's wrong with his face?
He just got a few scratches, that's all.
Oh, he needs medical assistance ASAP.
Why? He looks fine to me.
Because he got punched in the face. It hurts.
Number 9, Lynette from Soul Calibur. Lynette was one of the 3 playable shopkeepers in Soul Calibur 3 and my favorite of the group. While the other ones seemed like they were more serious fighters, Lynette always felt like she was just having fun. She does a little dance when she's idle, where she puts her hands in the air in a manner that would imply she gives little to no care. I have to give her credit for fighting with tambourines. They hit like your standard blades, so they're as effective as anything else in this game. Specifically, they function like Voldo's hand blades as she borrows some of his less creepy techniques. Maybe she learned from him, since Voldo's joke weapons were tambourines in Soul Calibur 2, so it looks like Voldo was the original musician in the series. His latest album is now available on iTunes and Google Play. Despite just being a bonus character, Lynette has a lot of personality both on the battlefield and in her shop, and even in her bio. Not even her developers can make her comply with giving away her personal info, only being able to list her height and weight as refuses to reveal, giving the reason that she's heavier and shorter than she'd like to be.
Oh, she's insecure. Oh, that's so sad. She's perfect. No one should tell her otherwise.
Oh, right. I'm listing the stats for my co-hosts and videos now. What's your height and weight?
Shut up.
Number 8, Dante in the Marvel vs. Capcom series. Dante's a cool guy who's been successful at life. He owns a business where he slays demons, he has some of the best swords and guns around, and he's an expert guitarist. In Devil May Cry 3, when he obtains his demon guitar Nevon, he all of a sudden just plays it like he's practiced guitar his whole life, with a solo and all these background effects, just proves that he's perfect. When translated into Marvel vs. Capcom, he couldn't bring all of his skills with the guitar to the fight, but he could use it to extend combos, fire projectiles, and create a pillar of purple that was the greatest assist ever. We call this one Jam Session, and it brings new meaning to the sky's the limit. While he can't shred a full guitar solo in Marvel vs. Capcom, his musical talents definitely act as a Swiss Army knife to fit the situation of where you are on the screen and how long you want your combos to be. Number 7, Madonna from... This was the sequel to a beat-em-up, now being a fighting game. The first game was localized under the title Kendo Rage, and the box art changed the designs of the characters to a more American comic Red Sonja style. I guess the localization team thought Americans would be confused and afraid by anime, despite the fact all the background characters retained their anime-like form. The sequel was never released outside of Japan until the PlayStation Store got a hold of it. However, they never translated it, so I cannot understand the plot of why Madonna is fighting, but I can decipher her favorite method of fighting: it's ballet. Every motion she does is a ballet move, and they inflict damage as if her dainty jumps were meant to be flying kicks. I'm not sure if she even knows that she's in a fight and just thinks this is one weird production of Swan Lake. It's referenced in her stage. What I do know is everything she does is seemingly accurate to ballet. She does her arabesques and pliés and other ballet moves that I probably learned about in that one semester of dance I took in college but forgot about now. I find it funny how she has no filler moves. Every move is standard for a ballerina. From the swiftest pokes to the twirls that somehow emit fire, Madonna is ready to ace her recital audition, even if it requires her to multitask by wailing on some soccer player. Number 6. Duck King from Fatal Fury. Duck King has always been an interesting character. I've admired him for how weird and unique of a fighter he was. His origin of being a DJ slash rapper slash breakdancer slash duck enthusiast shows in his moveset. His fighting style is called breakdance martial arts. It's not capoeira per se, it's just him breakdancing to the beat of his latest mix, which is aggressive enough to go on the offensive. He can windmill, headspin, and even freeze, doubling them as uppercuts and sweeps. I think they got real creative, finding ways to make this street dancing into a viable fighting style. In the world of fiction, I don't recommend breakdancing in an actual fight, it only worked for Arnold. However, SNK rarely invites him back. I'm not sure how they feel about him bringing a baby duck to a fight, but I guess his clothing style is stuck in the 90s a bit too much.
His hair looks stupid.
Get out. This man does not deserve your mockery. He raised a family of ducks on his own and brought them to the fight. He can do whatever he wants.
Oh, they're little chickies.
Wrong animal, look at his name.
Duck.
The duck part of his name comes into play as an aesthetic-only character that mimics him during a fight. It shows the more sensitive side of Duck King.
That's so cute. Okay, I now take it back that his hair was stupid. I feel bad about that now.
The reason his duckling seemingly never grows up is because he constantly raises a single family of ducks.
His first chick was named Julieta.
When Julieta grew up, she had babies that Duck King would then bring to fights, with the main one being named P-chan.
P-chan! Oh, P-chan!
Yes, I know they share a name, so Duck King may have sparse appearances in modern SNK fighting games, but at least he indirectly taught a duckling how to dance based on his fighting style. Number 5. Lord Raptor from Darkstalkers. He's a big-time rock star who's also a zombie, but as soon as the match begins, he puts away his guitar since it's time to get serious by turning into a bunch of sharp objects. If he wins, then it's time to rock on. Otherwise, the guitar is hardly involved in his moveset. It's occasionally there for a counter, but he probably doesn't want to get it dirty for any other attacks. While he does not do much musically in a fight, as discussed in my fighting game zombies list, the reason he's a body-morphing zombie has to do with his music career. Lord Raptor thought it would be a good idea to use a dark spell from an evil-looking book as the lyrics for his next song. And by performing it, his audience and him were sacrificed to the King of the Makai. Luckily, the king liked him enough to imbue him with zombie powers, allowing Raptor to perform another day. Even though most of his musical visuals are outside of the arena, you can't exclude a guy who's known as the god of metal in his series of origin and has the word rock in his Japanese name. Number 4. Eureka from Rival Schools. Despite only being a teenager, Eureka is a master violinist with the drill hair that could pierce the heavens. Her violin is her main weapon and she gets a lot of mileage out of it. She uses the bow to poke her opponent as if it was a fencing sword and uses the violin itself as a more blunt object. However, she relies less on physical strength and more on violin magic, whatever you want to call this. She plays her violin to produce physical musical notes and a melody that soothes the soul but hurts the body. Its music allows her to both float in the air and glide on some sheet music. Her elegance when playing her instrument is quite misleading when you look at the beatdown she can lay. Her sophisticated design is also interesting in how much it contrasts that of her brother Kuro, who is one of the main villains of the second Rival Schools game.
Oh no, he has creepy claws. Oh, he has Vega claws.
He kind of acts like Vega, but he's more like Voldo. Kuro is very sadistic in appearance and personality, but he could be a good guy deep down. Eureka has faith in him and her sibling relationship. She tries to defend him if you play her side of the story mode, and he, hypnotizes the entire student body if he is victorious, but at least he includes her.
No! Bad touch. Bad touch. Bad touch.
Number 3, Rise Kujikawa from Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. Her main tool is her microphone, which produces her musical notes and acts as a makeshift weapon.
She doesn't seem to know how to use it properly because it keeps falling.
Probably because she has no battle experience. Her main role in matches in the vanilla version of the game was being an announcer. Putting her in as a playable character sounds like if Kodo was playable in the next Yu Yu Hakusho fighting game that I want to exist. I've got some good ideas for a moveset for her if anyone ever wants to make that game, but once the update came out, Rise was ready to perform. Being a pop idol, many of her attacks involve singing and dancing her opponents to death, or unconsciousness. A lot of the time, the microphone stand just happens to hit her opponent when she's practicing for her next concert during a match. Oh, an enemy was here? I didn't even notice. Other times though, it was an active attack. I love the look on her face when she clearly tries to fight with all her might. Her coolest looking super move is when she turns this into a rhythm game. Now we're just switching the game genre at the drop of a hat. Rise is revolutionary. Number 2, Ino from Guilty Gear. She's all in for the Rockstar theme since she keeps her instrument out all the time. You enter battle knowing, oh yeah, that guitar is definitely her source of power. Her backstory is easy to explain. There is none. All we know is that she works for the main villain until she decides to gallivant around causing mischief or just helping the protagonists if she feels like it. As mentioned, her guitar, named Marlene, is where she gets all of her main attacks. My favorite is when she turns the trope of rock stars smashing their guitars on stage into a physical attack in various ways. The guitar can also act as a surfboard and changing the string as a throw, all very creative uses of her prized possession, and we have not even gotten to how she plays the guitar to attack. It creates electric shockwaves and energy blasts, but more interestingly, she can set up her hat as an amp and play some rocking tunes that produce sound waves of the gods. The hat upgrades her from acoustic to electric. It's also alive, which implies much of its undefined magical properties. 5th most useful hat in video games according to me in 2015. Her instant kill gets the band back together by rocking out with the greatest performance of her life, starring you, bounced between the sound waves of her demonic amps. Hey, honorable mentions, Matlock from Fighter's History. No real musical-based attacks, but his backstory and appearance are based on Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols, Shermie, Yashiro, and Chris from King of Fighters, who make up the band CYS. It's the initials of their names. None of their attacks are musical, but the reason for joining the King of Fighters tournament is, it was because Yashiro's rival musician was in it, that being Iori Yagami. And considering how big of a character Yagami is to the franchise, it's funny such a minor, less violent part of his character would motivate someone. Helga and Blue Suede Goo from Clay Fighters, Felicia from Darkstalkers. An aspiring singer, Felicia uses battles to show off her dancing, which is just rolling and scratching, but she considers it a dance. I'm glad she got to perform with Dazzler once.
Who does her hair?
The same stylist as Bonnie Tyler, and all the Capoeira fighters. I was considering giving some of them more spotlight on this list since Capoeira uses elements of dance and fighting, but that's different than just using dancing as a fighting style, so Capoeira fighters might get their own list someday. Also, Skullgirls has multiple musically talented honorable mentions, but that's involved with number 1. With 3 of its 14 characters on the roster having direct ties to music, this is probably the fighting game roster that is the most dense with musical characters. Eliza is a lounge singer who uses her mic in many attacks, but none of them are musical unlike the other 2, so she's out. Squiggly is a zombie opera singer whose singing can produce energy and drag opponents in, but that pales in comparison to the sheer number of music attacks from the real number 1, Big Band from Skullgirls. Ben Birdlin was a cop that was gravely injured by his treasonous team. When he was left for dead, Dr. Avian over at Lab 8 caught wind of Ben's troubles, so he put him in a specially designed iron lung. How special? Everything is an instrument. He's a cyborg orchestra. Anything he does brings out a new instrument, from the tiniest bicycle horn to smashing the cymbals on each side of his opponent. This was a brand new experiment by Dr. Avian, so his reasoning for using these instruments over traditional cybernetic parts must have been good, right? It's because Dr. Avian liked jazz. That was his logic. Seems kind of cruel to make this man 90% musical instruments, but if it's that or death, I guess Big Band's fate could have been worse, right? Either way, now he has the weaponry to fight the Skullgirl multiple times, and anyone else who gets in the way of his missions. He's also the father figure to all the other kids at Lab 8 who have been experimented on to save their lives. As I said before, his attacks reference every musical instrument they possibly can in many categories. Feeling like percussion? Which kind? He has chimes that sweep, a triangle that pokes, tambourines from below and above, and my favorite, the timpani. Are woodwinds more your style? Never fear, his entire lower half is basically a massive clarinet. You want to get Scottish with some bagpipes? That's his taunt, and it allows his super moves to do more damage when performed. What about our brass instrument lovers? His kneecap produces everyone's favorite part of a trombone. He has a giant motorized French horn for a super move. He plays the trumpet for an attack, which also allows the user to play songs on it, becoming the subject of some great covers put out by the denizens of the internet. And what about everyone's favorite woodwind made of brass, the saxophone? Quite obviously, it's his body. He plays it, he lives it, he loves it. Finally, his puntastic brass knuckles may not be a specific instrument reference, but they're awesome and very JoJo's. What's not to love? With all that musical talent built into one fighter, it was not difficult to put Big Band at the top of this list. So what did you think? Which musical characters in fighting games need to be retuned, and who deserves to be the main act more often? Did I discuss everyone cool, or are there a few that should be more than one-hit wonders? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.